Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, Mary, can you hear me now? Well, at least this one's working better.
No, I was my computer. Um, I had no sound.
Okay, well, that's fine. Now, yeah, now with mine upstairs, when I talk, the thing at the bottom moves, and it wasn't even moving. Now, is that because I heard you cough, but then I ran downstairs?
Okay, so when you look at where it says mute, there's a little arrow.
Yeah, I see the
No,
mute button.
so right next to it's a little arrow down. Check to make
Okay.
sure your microphone, the correct microphone, is attached.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is on the camera microphone here. Yeah. So I'll do that upstairs next time. Right. Uh, well, we're doing good. Josh is in his chair. I mean, either way is fine. The upstairs or downstairs computer. It doesn't um, really matter. If he's going to demand chicken or something, then upstairs would be better. But for now, we've had medicine and we're good shape.
Yeah, my computer worked, and then my kids were playing on it, and now I don't know what they did.
Yeah.
All right. Let's try one more thing quick, and then we can get started.
Sure.
All right, now talk.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can, but for some reason my speakers are not switching over. It is what it is.
Yeah. This thing to the left that says sound monitoring and it's got headphones on it with the cross through it. What does that do?
So some people like that. So what happens if you don't have a headset in is you hear your own voice. You hear an echo.
Ah, okay.
It's harder,
Hmm.
and you're gonna hear a little background noise.
Okay.
The monsters being a monster.
Yeah.
All right. Nice, David. Now can you go upstairs and play, and then you can come down and destroy my office and when I'm done? All right. I had to find my notebook with the right notes. No, no, please hand me that. Go away. Thank you. Oh, shit.
Hmm.
Did you hear him in the background? He knows I'm
Yeah.
talking about him.
Hmm.
So he knows during certain hours of the day when mom does the radio, he needs to be quiet.
Yeah.
And he knows it's okay, David. Now go upstairs. That if he bugs me enough, I'll hand over my phone, which he doesn't play with very often, in order to Shut them up.
Yeah.
So, welcome to this episode of Crackin the Spectrum, where lived experiences meet unapologetic truth. As me, a neurodivergent mother of two autistic special children, and a specialist in neurodiversity, and Rob.
hmm Yeah. I'm a life coach for special needs parents. I have a 23-year-old who speaks with his talking device, and so I help the parents of the bigger kids that what do you do when the school bus stops coming. So I help them with next steps and figuring out their money and the team they're going to put together for whoever's going to watch their child when they're passed away, or for their adult children who are going to have that job.
So, what this show is about, it's about breakthroughs, it's about stereotypes, myths, misinformation surrounding neurodiversity and autism, from personal stories to breakthrough research to understanding the misunderstanding.
hmm hmm And what's
Some
good
of our
about
topics tend to get controversial. Some
yep.
subjects may think to be off limits, but it's the world that we live in. It's stuff that you go through every day with clients and family. It's stuff that I go through personally or with my kids and family, and different things that, that come up.
hmm
So I have a list of different topics that we were going to talk about today.
hmm
Where did you want to start?
Well, I think that I'd start with is the high functioning guys, because I know two of them. One is Jack Spirko, who is very big in the prepper community, and he's talked about that he's somewhere on the spectrum. I don't know. Today he said, "Well, I just don't like people." So, so he and another guy that I used to work with were were the were that type, and then there's the other type of this nice man that was in a an alignable smart connect that wouldn't let anybody else visit or share, and just continually talked. So, are those two um, presentations of autism of high functioning individuals? Is that common?
It's common with people in general.
Okay, so it's not a yeah. So it may not be an autism thing. I mean, these two talked about having autism,
And
and
sometimes it is. So, like talking, conversation, things like that, that is a part of autism. And why I mean it's typical of people in general is we all have days where we just are so fed up with population that we just hate people.
hmm yeah,
But you got to remember that these individuals live in a world where they're being talked down to,
yeah,
but you get overwhelmed. Like I struggle with social environments.
hmm
And I love networking because I have a plan of attack.
yeah,
I go in, I meet you, I deal with some of you, and then I tell you what I do,
hmm
which is great for me because I tell you what I do.
yeah, yep. So tell me about that. I heard a sigh when I was asking my question. Tell me about that sigh.
Well, it just the first thing I thought of was, you know what? We all hate people. Yes, it is a sign, it can be a symptom, can be.
Mhm.
And this is where it gets misconstrued of arrogance or rudeness in the talking thing.
Mhm.
But when you look at what hating people is in general, it could be self exhaustion.
Mhm.
And like we're in a networking group at Alignable, right? When this happened,
Yeah. Mhm.
it could have been just irritation because there's a few people that I've met on Alignable that have told me how drinking this water, taking this patch, they could cure autism. They could cure
Yeah.
me or
Yeah.
cure my kids.
Mhm.
So, you get tired of hearing that.
Yeah.
Or you get like I've gotten the comment on Alignable a few times. Wow. And you run your own create your own business. And I have the smart comments where go back and go, yeah, I also can walk and talk and chew gum all at the same time.
Mhm.
I can read and write, and I can carry a loaded weapon. The army taught me to,
Mhm.
you know, and depending on what they went through as a child, a lot of times you get to that point of really just getting overwhelmed with people
Yeah.
because you feel, especially in networking groups, if
Mhm.
you're not talking about, networking, there's two different ways to network. And depending on which marketer you talk to, one is completely exhausting. And there's the one which is exhausting, which is, you know, you're performing. You are
Right.
literally dressing the part,
Mhm.
speaking the part, reading your scripts.
Yeah.
And for a normal person, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
But imagine living your way that way your whole life.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I can think the guy that has high functioning that loves computers and did a lot of nerdy things that I could see him on the spectrum of it's overload, it's overwhelming, and so I thought the introverts, the people that that uh, that would rather code or whether they're shy or whether they're awkward, like we have masterminds for introverts that Lady Carrie runs. So I never thought about this, but do you think that they're somewhere on the spectrum?
Introverts,
Yeah,
it's a possibility. A lot of times they're ADHD, ADDs.
yeah,
There are also people who've lived in have self-esteem issues.
yeah,
And there's just some people that are just wired to like
yeah.
being introverted.
Mhm, mhm.
But there's a good link and good possibility.
Yeah,
It just and this is the hard part about it, and this is what bugs me about, putting them all in categories
yeah.
based on descriptions because there's so many factors to look into play. You
Mm,
know, when they're talking, is it fast or slow? Is there gaps in between, longer gaps than normal? What kind of childhood did they have? You know, were they struggling to fit in as a kid? Were they different? Did they have, a difficult childhood? There's all these different scenarios that can make you introverted.
mhm, mhm.
Some people are literally born shy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the way I've approached, under me trying to understand autism, it gets to I fall into the trap that it's convenient, it's easier to put everybody in categories versus a shades of gray,
Correct.
and so that's the so I'm at so and that's your when we've talked about these issues for the past few months, that I see a pattern of you don't want to have people put into boxes, and I started off with a boxing question because I
Right.
saw this guy do this and this guy do that,
You
and
know,
so
and, uh, going to the conversation part where the guy talked all the time.
yeah,
A lot of times they're in what we call info dumping. It's just you run your
yeah,
mouth.
you're giving me a box term. I'll use that. I will. Um, uh, I'm going to use that in my brain and not brain. Oh, you're one of those. But I'm gonna, but
It
that
can
helps.
be a form of regulation.
Yeah,
So,
box
like,
dumping, and it's a form of regulation.
yeah, info dumping is just it can be a form of
Info dumping.
it could be a couple different things. So
Mm,
it could be a form it's a form of regulation for some individuals.
mhm.
And depending on the situation and like being overwhelmed or not, or a lot of other areas, or it could be just um the way, like my daughter, for instance, there's some people that just like talk, you know, and we know she's awake because her mouth is moving.
Yeah.
I used to be the same way. This is why I had the nickname as Diesel as a kid because I live in Minnesota and we have diesel trucks, like Alaska. And
Yeah.
wintertime comes, you don't that truck runs.
Aha.
So I mouth ran. But I also had the name Speedy because I learned that my brain moves really fast.
Mhm.
And instead of learning how to slow my brain down, because this is back in the day and my family just didn't understand it, I learned to talk as fast as my brain worked.
Yeah.
So, like, my first job as a kid was the drive-through at McDonald's because I could tell you your order like the micro machine guy,
Right.
hence the name Speedy.
Right. Yeah.
And another way, a thing about just talking a lot is that, especially in like networking groups, especially like on Alignable, where it's a lot of times it is like speed dating,
Yeah.
or I like to call it whiplash, because just
Mhm.
every 7 minutes you're there's no break. You're just in a room, in a room, in a room, in a room.
Yeah.
You know, with processing delays too, they're learning that okay, they didn't get all this out in this meeting. We're gonna keep improving and keep running our mouth and keep
Yeah.
talking about everything to get it all out.
Mhm. Yeah. And you describe that as whiplash, as something negative, like in a car wreck. And I find it exhilarating, and I love the challenge. I'm ADHD, bounce off the walls, and if you're an introvert or on the spectrum, you're more boxes, then then uh, then you don't enjoy that. So, like do you enjoy the smart connects, or is it or is it something? It's a network, or is it a chore, a networking chore?
Depends on the day. So, like, I choose to go through some of those that I like the host, so I'll go through it. I call it whiplash because it's just by the end, I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed.
Right, and that's what and Lady Sam has been talking about that at introverts because she describes that every week about you're overwhelmed by this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And there's other days where I'm good. I can deal with it. And I've spent, a couple hours to, half the day doing different networking group meetings.
Yeah. Hmm.
We had someone enter the studio
Yeah.
and I'm going to open up the line.
Hmm.
Hi, Miss Jessie. How are you? Whenever you're ready, you can unmute and talk. I know on Tuesday's travel show, We
Mhm.
had a very phenomenal lady come on and talk about her daughter
Yeah.
out of Washington and how she became an advocate and helped change laws and things like that for autism and special needs.
Yeah.
And it was just a phenomenal story of a path similar to what I took.
Mhm.
And, the state of Washington has become one of the cutting edge center areas for neurodiversity and acceptance.
Yeah. That's
You
good.
know, another good one is Buffalo area of New York.
Yeah. And I wonder, do you see that more rural? Because I think of your town as rural, and Buffalo is not. I don't know how big that is compared to New York or Louisville, where I live. Um, let's see. So, do you find more? Is the rural areas more accepting?
It depends on the area. So,
Yeah.
like, where I live is a very, very close knitted, close minded community.
Mhm.
My mother in law is not a nice person. My mother in law is very bad.
Mhm.
And because of the things she did, we had to live it down. And for the longest time, when I moved to this town, not having any connections to this town, I was an outsider.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the more the people in the town got to know who I was and how I was completely the polar opposite and stuff like that, they opened up. When my kids were first diagnosed, we had our neighbor kid that's across the street, that's her age is in between my two,
Mhm.
wasn't allowed to play with each other because they were different.
Mhm.
My kids have gotten made fun of to the point where my daughter, she is German. So she's got the darker hair and darker skin. It's called a dark German
Mhm.
or northern German or southern German. And so, but it almost has a Mexican look.
Yeah.
She's been called things like, and we live in a very primary white
Mhm.
community, but she's been called a dirty Mexican, among other things. And then when I confronted the parents about it, they go, "Well, she made it up." And I go, "If your child comes to you at 5, 6 years old asking you what this meant, they didn't make it up."
Yeah.
But, she's been called so much because she talks a little slower or
Mhm.
doesn't always understand things and would rather, run around and play than just sit and gossip like a girl.
Yeah.
And so we've struggled more than, you would in a bigger city.
Yeah. Yep, that's I'm seeing a pattern with me tonight that I'm putting things in boxes like I think city bad, rural good. But I've heard that from out in the homesteading community that it that that like we went to work in a town and they said at a gas station doing some plumbing and they said, now don't say anything bad about anybody because everybody's related to everybody. So
Mhm.
that's a reality, and there and you can't just say people in big cities are far left rude
I
people.
live that reality.
Yeah,
We
amen.
have the standing joke in our house because my husband's family helped establish this town 100 years
Yeah,
ago, a
yeah,
couple 100 years ago,
yeah.
that my kids cannot date anyone that isn't imported from the into this town, or they need a DNA test because we really don't know how people we're related to in this town, and we're not a big town.
Yeah, yeah,
I run into people all the time that tell me they're a cousin of my husband's. Yeah, that is literally the world we live in.
yeah. So with the town that you had the unhappiness with your mother-in-law, is that the same town? You said you
Yeah.
moved to a farther. Did you move to a different town, or is it the same town?
No, we're still in the same town.
Okay,
The more I've gotten involved in the town, people got to know me and know my
okay,
kids, the
okay.
world's changing.
Well, good.
They're looking at us separately.
Well, great.
I do a lot of volunteer work. My kids do a lot of different activities.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I run my business in the parade.
Good.
I used to volunteer with the Boy Scouts till they
Right.
wouldn't be neurodiverse friendly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Contrary to the belief, each the um corporate may be this way,
Yeah.
doesn't mean every area is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what I find in coaching is that what I've got to keep track of is that you're telling a terrible story, and it's traumatic. We could call it little t, and then but that's not the whole town. And it's
No.
you have a whole life of this happened a few times. This was painful, and you're explaining it to me, and things are better. You're going to do the state fair this summer, the fair in your town,
Yeah, we're gonna do the county fair.
the
We
county
have
fair.
the
Hmm.
so Steele County Fair is the largest free fair in the Midwest.
Right. Amen.
And so we're gonna have a camper out there. We're gonna have booths up. We're actually creating a sensory-free zone out
Hmm.
there. A local place actually donated a tent for us.
Great.
So it'll be a place for families with kids with special needs that go to the fair. When we go to the fair, I take my kids all the time. We
Hmm.
can only go an hour or 2 increments, which is why I
Right.
love it free. And so it'll be a place for them to go. It'll be different segmented off in different areas, so there will be a dark room.
Right.
And so or there'll be a place where they can put headsets on and just reset or
Yeah.
music in another area.
Yeah.
So there'll be all these sensory tools there, but then it'll also be education for parents with kits
Hmm.
that are
Yeah.
donated for them to take with them.
Great. I mean, it's you've got a great plan there because the parents will come by, the children will take a sensory break, the parents will get support and education, and they're going to feel supported, and that'll be great. Whether it and yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, my whole goal is, most parents don't take their kids to events like this because it's too much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a place for them to see that, yeah, they can go and there's a safe place for them to go and
Yeah.
take a break.
Right.
So it gets kids that don't usually get to experience things in life,
Hmm.
get a chance to learn how to experience it.
Yeah.
Teaching self awareness is key. You know, when kids get overwhelmed, even like taking them to the grocery store can be a chore.
Yeah.
But, like we always have a game plan and I watch the kids as cues.
Hmm.
And so they know that if it becomes too much, they need to say something because we can always leave the store.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm okay with that.
right, and that's what my behavioralist says that is it worth it to go to the store, and it's not. And what I try to do is just go in and get what we need, and that's worked. That worked a couple times. I just held on to Josh and said, "Okay, we're going to get this. We're just going down this aisle, and we're going to get a toy in this aisle, and that's all we're going to do." And even though there might have been something I wanted. Um, but we just stuck with that. So and it's following their lead and seeing it's different. Like I'm going to decide is it worth it or not to go to the store, and I've decided that it's not. And but you can and so I'm watching. I'm taking my child's cue in a different way.
Right. But here's the problem I have with that
Hmm.
is, if you don't teach them how to deal with the world, you don't
Yeah.
teach them mind and body and understand the feelings, and you
Right.
just avoid that situation altogether, how
Hmm.
are they ever going to learn to adapt and understand? And I'm not saying adapt in a way of masking. I'm
Hmm.
saying they have control of their environment. It's like taking someone who's shut into out of the world and letting them experience it baby step at a time.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that parents sometimes take the easy way out. Instead of teaching how to deal with things and understand things and learn how to self-regulate in the moments,
Hmm.
it's easier to say, all right, we're just going to get, um, delivery groceries. I don't remember what the company's called because I don't
Yeah.
have it up here.
Well, yeah. That's what and that's a big thing that I'm. Yeah. It's yeah. Since I'm very lenient, I've created the monster, and I've got to figure out. And so yeah. I'm gonna, Jesse. If you want to put a question in the chat, you could do that. If you don't
Or
want to come up
comment.
or comment a question or a comment. Mary, I'm gonna run upstairs and check on Josh. I'll be back in a minute.
All right. So one thing I'd like to expand on a little bit is explain a little bit how an autistic brain processes and connects, and how things are felt. You know, we for the longest time had this idea or thought process that they're broken, and they're compared to a normal or average typical person. And the better way of looking at it is it's a different operating system. You know, one group of people is an Apple and the other one's a Windows. Sorry, I can't talk and type at the same time, or I type when I'm talking. And so, indiv- um, autistic individuals process the world through unique sensory, cognitive, and emotional framework, which shapes how they experience information, express themselves. And the thing is, to understand this is essential with um, eliminating assumptions, but it also helps build that connection. You know, a good example was when my son was diagnosed, for instance. He was nonverbal, banging his head on the walls and everything else. And my husband's nephew is autistic and he's nonverbal. And so that's all he saw is my son 20 years later still in that category. And so he kept looking at him like he was broken. And thanks to COVID, he got stuck with him in a sense. So they got to learn about each other more and understand there's a person behind everything. The way that processing works is they're more detail orientated, which is not, we'll kind of look at it as a deficit because they're so iron focused. But in reality, it's not. They look at things as raw details first rather than filtering it through social or society or contextual shortcuts. No, they will notice the patterns, the textures, the inconsistencies that someone else may miss.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of times we look at repetition as a flaw. They're repeating something over and over again. For them, it's like a placeholder. So as they're repeating this, their brain's processing something totally different. They're multitasking.
Hmm.
You know, it takes their brain a little bit longer to process things than others, which may mean, it may signal a deeper analysis. It just takes that little bit longer. Too much input, too much of a lot of different things, or too much of one thing. A good example is when they get upset and you're asking them over and over and over and over, repeatedly over and over and over. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? That's increasing that meltdown or in getting them to shut down, because for them, for us as regular people, it's automatic filtering. Our brains dump plus or minus 7 things on a regular basis. The human body takes in trillions of bits of information. We're processing, our brains automatically process everything, and it takes and dumps. That all goes into our subconscious. For them, it doesn't dump. That's the problem. So everything that's going on in that room, from the lights to the smells to the sounds to the colors, that is all being um processed without the dump. Jesse asks, is it harder for some autistic people to learn to become verbal than others? That is not, it's harder to say. It's more than a yes or no answer.
Yeah, it's every autistic child is different, and you've met one child with autism, then you've met one child with autism. So learning to become verbal, is it harder for some autistic people to become verbal than others? It's it really depends on the individual. It's not harder. It's that there's a there's a debate about um, Mary's son. She had her tricks, and she was and her hard work, and she was able to get him talking. And with my son, who's 23, is still nonverbal. And I was told that when he was 5, that, well, if the synapses of the brain that do speech, they go on to do other things through the process of pruning, or they say go on to do other things, they actually die off, and so he'll never speak like you and I speak. So I just automatically believe that. Now, Mary's son is is different. That's not the case. Your son is, my nephew's 28 now and still does not have a wide vocabulary. Um, yeah.
Can I jump in here a minute, Rob?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Mary.
So, yes, it can be harder, but not for the reason you think it is. And why I say that is because um all depending on how the brain's wired, for one. And it depends on if they have different conditions like apraxia. So it depends, and the easy way of looking at it is, um, where are their gifts, where are their challenges, and what parts of the brain are affected. But with apraxia, it's a neurological condition that actually affects the brain's ability to plan and coordinate the muscle movements needed for speech.
Hmm.
Another issue could be also the sensory auditory processing. And this is where how the how you take what you hear and how much of a delay is it for them to process it and turn it back into speech. There's some great programs to look at it and figure it out and learn, but th- the thing is that for some individuals, because it's so much work in the brain, it's so exhausting, and they found better ways to communicate. They just pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is too is looking at, were they in speech? Were they always corrected? Were they always forced? So one of the big things that they are trying to change in speech is that back in speech and back in the old way of dealing with things was that you had to have eye contact. You were taught the rhythm of your voice and the rhythm of how you speak the words, tone of voice you use, taking turns. It was taught all at the same time. So you have a child who's not speaking that's learning how to say basic sounds. And not only are they just learning basic sounds like you would, a child, a baby, but then they're getting everything else thrown at them. And then when they do say something, they're corrected and told, no, that's not right. Or they keep being made to repeat that word over and over and over until they get it right. And so part of that creates this barrier where they start to internalize it as anxiety and shame. They're afraid to get it wrong. Because what's the point of talking if every time you open your mouth, you're told you're wrong? It's like a marriage. Every time you say something that disagrees with your partner, you're going to get yelled at. You're just going to just say yes, yes, sir, yes, yes. You're not even, attempt anymore. You're just not going to, you're going to lose communication. That's the same thing that's happening to these kids. Another reason is that, and I used to be part of this problem. Sometimes I still am. I'm getting better at it. They get so used to being interrupted or spoke for them. It's kind of like when you're in a household of 7 kids, the baby doesn't talk till late because everybody talked for him.
Yeah, they carried the baby around. The baby's feet didn't hit the floor.
Exactly. You know. So sometimes it's a mass silence. It's they're just so used to being misunderstood or interrupted or talked for them. For them, they end up with the scripting a lot more, the echolalia, where they're repeating a sentence all the time or a phrase, or they just don't talk because it doesn't feel comfortable or safe for them. And one thing we got to remember is that just because they don't speak words, you know, look at other forms of communication that they do. Are they doing sign language? Are they typing it out? Do they have, those what are they called, Rob?
Yeah, the picture exchange. You can do PECs, which is they used to have picture art printed out, and they would have a book, and they would
Yeah.
flip through it,
I'm
pulled
talking
out
about
their pictures.
the tablet thingy you have for Josh.
Yeah, the tablet is all it's ACC, alternative communication, and so yeah, we have a device that it has all his pictures on it, and we're trying so he can. There's a couple of ways to do it. We're trying that. Yeah, he's got a picture. He hits foods, and then he goes to. It'll open up a page with all his foods on it, and so he knows where those things are, and he quickly. So um, with us, he figured out. Uh, like we had a picture of a settee or a booth inside a restaurant. Well, he quickly only took a couple times knew that meant go to a restaurant. Yeah, that's good. He spoke his first words around 10. So, Mary, one of the things that popped in my head, and this ties into Jesse's last statement there, is that you have these people that think, well, he was on this patch, or he took the ASEA, we did this, we did that, and one day he opened the door and said, "Happy birthday, Mom," and Mom about faints, and this is glorious. It could be that he could do that all along, but he chose not to for certain reasons.
And sometimes that's the case, but other times it's they just don't feel comfortable.
Amen.
Like we had a major, I call it a major breakthrough. Some people call it a minor.
Hmm.
But I'm the one that always asks him for hugs, my son. My daughter just always lovey dovey.
Yeah.
And so we were in the grocery store yesterday. I meant to call you and tell you this, Rob, but I was just exhausted.
Hmm.
But we were in the grocery store and he mumbled at first, "Can I have a hug?" I'm like, "What'd you say?" And there was so much noise, I didn't hear him. He repeated it again and goes, "Can I have a hug?" He actually asked me for a hug.
Yeah. Inside the store, which is, um, yeah, that's glorious.
And but like we always had the rule in our house, and I have an IEP meeting with my kids as teacher tomorrow,
Hmm.
which tomorrow I'll have to call you and talk to you about it, Rob. And one of the rules we have for the kids is it's indoor voice, outdoor voice.
Yeah.
So
No rides. Lay down. Yeah.
when they speak, it's outdoor voice. So it's whatever goes is in their mind comes out their mouth. Once it comes out, then we turn around and go, okay, we hear you. Now can you rephrase that with your indoor voice? So it's more polite or less being a jerk.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we always let them express themselves however they deem fit. And like for instance, when they're stemming or they're, repeating phrases or words, we don't stop it. We let him just go.
Yeah. And that's a great way of honoring what he, instead of you're doing the opposite of what the school says, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. They were trying to take our kids into the factory learning thing because schools were, that was, they taught all the kids, well, the bell rings, so you get up and you're ready, and some theorized that was so the bell at the factory to be factory workers. So now that's the model of school. So when they tried to apply that to our kids, and so you're not doing that, you're doing both. Like David in the background, you're letting him. He is going to he's going to express himself, and then you're going to say, "Okay, we hear that. Now let's do that in the indoor voice." You're not saying that you're wrong, or you're adapting. You're teaching and adapting and building on what he's saying, and you're
But I'm
saying
also accepting.
you're accepting him, that you're accepting his words, and then you're saying, can we do that in an indoor voice? Because we're outside, we're running around chasing the dog outside, and the running through the grass you just planted and stomped, and that's fine, and that's great. And then when you're in the grocery store, we're going to use indoor voice or inside the house.
In the grocery store, because mom don't hear very well, we do our outside voice.
Aha. Yeah.
Only because mom don't hear very well.
Was that from the military and shooting the guns?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Faulty earplugs? Yeah.
Yeah. Faulty earplugs. That's bad. Yep. Yep. So that ties me into another um, problem I wanted to ask you about, Mary, is that it ties into many different examples. But like tonight, Josh, you were very anxious for a soft drink, and you were hitting the button soft drink, and you were so loud and you were screeching, and it hurts my ears because of my high frequency hearing loss, and he's got the loud voice like I do. So he wanted me, and I was saying, well, put your shoes on. We're going to see Dr. Eric. And I didn't explain, okay, well, the drink is in the cooler. We're going to get it. So now I'm getting a piece. I could have done
Well,
that.
instead of explain it, just shoes first, then drink.
I tried that, but I tried that and it didn't work. He kept hitting the drink button and he wasn't hearing that. And then he was screeching and I just said, come on, we got to go. So I ushered him out of the house without his shoes on. And then he got outside and then I gave him the drink out of the cooler. And
No.
then then put him in the car. And then we went to Dr. Eric's. And my theory was that, well, when we get there, you're going to flip out to go in, or they're early. You got to put your shoes on. So I was planning. I mean, with Jesse, I don't know if you do this with your nephew. If his parents, sometimes we we go certain places. Like I'll drive certain way because if we pass by Burger King, then he's gonna want Burger King. So I adjust my route, and then now on the other hand, we could that I could work on instead of just changing something. I could say, Josh, we're not going. We're going to pass by Arby's, but we're not going. And then he could understand we can't always go by to Arby's when we pass it by. Hmm.
How did the doctor's appointment go?
It went good today. We were going to Dr. Eric. He's a chiropractor that does cranial sacral and chiropractic. And it went good because he's been with, we've been going there about 10 years. And he'll go in and he'll get on the table. And then he got up and ran to the bathroom. And I didn't know what he was doing, but Josh, I'm very proud of you that sometimes I get anxious, like we were at the Save It lot the other night, and he just runs, and I thought he was running for a toy. Josh, come back! But he was running to go pee, and that's what he did today. He went and he peed, and so he's Josh. You're very anxious to get your toy, so like he let Dr. Eric work on him, but then Josh got up and went out the room. But we went to the waiting room, and we made him sit in the chair where he did the final adjustment. And he does really good. He lets him, because that's helping us on Josh holds his stool, Jesse, because what happened with Josh is when you were 3, it, it hurt the poop. And so you decided, well, I shall never do that again. And so he'll even hold his legs together, and we have to give him, he outgrew Miralax and Benefiber, and now we're on the FiberWise with Menaluca. So Dr. Eric can feel in his belly if he's got a lot of stool, which he does. So, yeah, it was a good visit.
So it sounds like we got a lot of habits that he's established that you're gonna have to
Hmm.
break.
Yeah, yeah. And, yep, and let's see, how did I do that? I know that I was embarrassed. Well, embarrassed, yeah. What I did is that um, the chiropractor, I mean, my Travis, the ABA guy, he went with us to Dr. Eric, and Josh signed, let's eat, and I automatically just took him to Burger King with Travis in tow. So later on, Travis said, why don't we just try to go up the hill and not go to Burger King? What a concept. So we did that. And so now I understand that, Josh, you're going to flip out for about 5 minutes, but you'll get over it. So I don't automatically have to do that. So then I applied that to the rides. He would want to go to every 37 minutes. So we're not going on as many rides. And so I'm just continuing to peel these layers of onion of that I've created these problems. So now, without as many rides, I can get more stuff done. We can work on more of our therapy homework, and Josh, you adapt. Like you wanted to shove your toy under this door, and one of these doors wasn't working out, so I had to block it off, and you didn't mind. Now, going outside, he likes to go outside and throw his toys over the fence, and I got to go get him. So I turn that lock around. No, we're not going to do that. So I do set some boundaries, and like tonight is a good example of that. I'll have to with the grocery store and Josh, you're screeching when I come in the door, and you want to go for a ride to get your soft drink. Then I've got to work on that to where I can redirect, find a way that we're not having this screeching. Hmm.
Question for you. Have you
Yeah.
noticed, like, during different astronomical events,
Hmm.
does Josh seem more agitated than normal?
No, I don't. It could be that I don't. I'm not tracking the full moons. Like if there's a big
Well,
moon
no, just the
event.
full moon though. During this
Yeah.
period right now, like you're talking about Josh being a little more agitated than normal,
Yeah.
sleep patterns are a little off. You do
It
know
is.
that we are in a strong magnetic field in solar flares.
I did not know that. My prepper friends talk about that and a lot when I was looking at their chats. But Josh, the last 2 nights, he hasn't got up early. He slept in a couple nights because it's and that's good because it's hard on me when he gets up and bites his hand because we can't go. But we're doing better on that. That I'm working. I say in my dad voice, no, we're not going on a ride. Or I just say lay down, get in the shower, sit on throne, and that way if he gets up later, then that distracts him or cover up. And I haven't always had to. He doesn't always bring me socks or point to the shoes. And like he just brought me socks a minute ago, I said no, go lay down, and he did. And it's not as much as a fit. He's asking for what he wants, and I said no, and he went and laid down. What a concept!
Isn't it the best thing in the world?
Yeah, I mean you can use the word no. I mean that's what I'm doing. I'm taking my glasses off. I'm looking at because I got my readers on to see the screen. But Josh, you're chilling, and I gave him medicine at a because I debate about that. I feel I'm embarrassed that the two types of shame that I'm a bad person or that or you're just embarrassed. But I sometimes, Josh, I do give you medicine early so you'll go to bed early, and sometimes I give it late so you'll sleep in. And tonight uh, I gave it to you at 9:15, and your crashing takes about an hour. And I'm doing mine, and I took my medicine when I ran up there to check on Josh. I brought my sleeping pill. I take half a sleeping pill because I have to drink, tea to stay awake to get going. And so now, because the other night, Mary, we were going on and on and on, and your other guy joined, and I didn't get to sleep till 11:30, and I was dragging the next day. So I've got to figure out. So that's my plan. I'm going to watch the clock here. Let me put my glasses on. Let's see. So we've done an hour, and
Yes, sir.
and then I'm going to. So I took my sleeping pill, and my goal is to be in bed before 11 and be winding down with my sleep apnea mask. Now, if we're on a roll and you're coaching me or I'm coaching you or we've got a bunch of clients, a bunch of listeners, um, I'll stick on and we'll support you, and I'll drink more coffee the next day. But taking a sleeping pill now will help me. I might be dragging, and what's that word? But I'm going to hang with you. I'm going to hang with with you, Mary, our host, and with whoever steps in asking for support or ask questions.
It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good. We just go with the flow. It's how it works.
Yeah.
Um,
Does David ever fall asleep downstairs and you carry him upstairs?
no, he falls asleep wherever he ends up. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, today, this morning, he's been up all night. He slept during the day today, which is fine. So
Mm-hmm.
I allow it because I have a lot of meetings sometimes during the day. So it's
Yeah.
easier to let him just sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got your big meeting tomorrow, and
Yes.
you got your paperwork laid out to take, or you've got it on your phone or in your head, and
It's all on the computer, so I have
all in
dual screens. We do
dual screen.
Google Meet.
Oh, okay. So you're not going to the school. You're going to do Google Meets. Yeah.
Yepers.
I've never heard of that. Also,
Remember, they go to school online, so
well, that's right. At our school, we always met in person. So, but that's good. Yeah, you're all ready. You got everything on the computer. There's nothing to take because it's
yep.
all
And it's
ready.
only a temporary IEP just to get it done because it expires.
Yeah,
And then we're
that's
gonna
right.
have a meeting, a new IEP meeting at the beginning of the school year
Yep.
to adjust based on progress for over the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That'd be good. Yep. 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 So you're doing the same thing. I mean, you're letting him sleep because you can get stuff done. It's the same way that that I might give Josh the medicine so we can all go to bed early. And I remember one time when he was 18 months old, and Tracy was at work, and she said, "Don't let him crash." But he fell asleep. I was getting so much stuff, and Josh, he pounded on my head all night long. I remember him jumping up there, ha ha ha. It was glorious.
Yeah.
But yep, 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 yep.
I don't miss those days.
Yeah, I mean,
Mine come in and they'll stare at me,
yeah,
and you can feel their eyes on you.
yeah. Now get up, get up. Yeah. Luckily, Josh, he crashes. I mean, the clonidine is doing a great job. I mean, because I've you know, if I don't give it to him, and we were at the Tracy wanted to go to the emergency room, so I thought, oh, we'll be out early, and of course, I should have taken
Come here.
his medicine, and so Josh never did crash
It's
until we
done.
got home and gave him
All
the medicine.
right, now
So
go
it's
ahead.
working.
Hi.
Hi, David. Have you been good today?
Wrong one.
Uh-oh, Ellie. No, I'll
What's your
begin.
name?
Ariana.
Ariana, I know. I'm sorry. Falsely accused again.
Hey, they sound identical.
Well,
I have
good.
a. I yell at one, it's the other one.
Right. Oh, my mother. Yeah, Ariana. My mother in heaven used to say, she'd go through, Rob, Matthew, Michael, and she'd just get frustrated. And when there were six of us. So I don't know if that's an ADHD thing or, because as you get older, you know, Ariana, as your mother and I get older, then we see things in our parents and we start connecting the dots.
Oh, they practice each other's voices so they sound like each other.
Yeah. Can they get on the phone and fool grandma and grandpa or other teachers?
Oh, they fool Uncle Ron all the time.
That's good.
And then you just hear them cracking up laughing. No,
Yeah.
they will literally sit down and listen to each other speak and
Hmm.
make sure they can pronounce the words and sound just like the other one.
Well,
So I,
good.
yeah,
Well, I'm always, it's a good
it's a new
problem
way
to
to
have.
screw with mom.
Well, yeah, I'm excited about that because I wish that Josh could do that. Now, Mary, with your help, and I'm going to figure out, um, how you did it, and we're gonna. we're going to get Josh talking one way or another, and he is talking. Josh, you
He's screwing
yep.
with you now.
What did you say?
Said he's already screwing with you.
I know he is screwing with me. And the question that I have, the last question of the night, is that with my ADHD brain, it was explained to me that it runs so fast that, like when somebody's telling the story, I'm already thinking, instead of just I'm listening, but I'm also thinking the story could go three different ways. And
Yeah.
so with Josh, I said to Josh, I said, now, uh, you know, I said, use your voice to say, he brought me chicken fries. Well, go use your words. And I pointed to the kitchen, to the table. Well, he goes and grabs his plate because sometimes I say, get your plate. But when I said, so he was looking at my hand motion. So what I could do is I could sit on my hands and I say, go, find, use your word, use your voice or find your word. And also, he gets frustrated because I make him do the cut sign and find it on the screen because that's a long story. But
Yeah,
is
but
that
the best
part of?
way for that is use your words. If you know, I'd love to hear you use your words, and then
Mhm.
let him pick. And then if he's using one way, let him use whatever way works for him along with that.
Amen. Amen.
Because when
Yeah.
you start, and that's part of it, is when you're starting to, do it two different ways, besides using your words, you're now turning into three ways to get what he needs or wants. So it becomes a chore. And you
Yeah.
want talking to be fun, not a chore.
Yeah. And that's yeah, Ariana. That my philosophy was that I just need to catch Josh up. He can have fun when he gets to be an adult, but now I shall work him to death. ABA, 40 hours a week. But I've met your mother, and now I'm shifting away from that.
And that's it, and that's the thing, the way I explain it is think of when a baby talks for the first time.
Hmm.
It's like everything that comes out of their mouth is a celebration.
Yeah, because they're happy.
Yeah.
Amen.
Now, just because he's 20 some years old doesn't mean that doesn't change. So
Hmm.
when he, make a big deal out of when he does say words
Yeah.
and encourage him to want to say more words.
Right. Yep. Yep. That's good.
Because the
Yep.
more it becomes fun and less restrictive, the more they're going to want to try it.
Yeah. Yep. That's
You
right.
know,
And that
doesn't
ties in.
matter what comes out, it's just whatever comes out of his mouth.
Right.
Have you looked at the Gemini 2 speech app yet?
No. Let me get that. Let me get that up here. Gemini 2 speech app.
That is a good starter. That is one of my secrets. I use it on my own son. And it covers each aspect of speech for the different variations for the reasoning why they're not speaking. So, like not knowing how the words are pronounced, how your mouth is shaped, the muscles. It
Yeah.
actually takes those words and shows you how the words are pronounced. It breaks the skin, takes the skin off, and shows you all the muscles and how the muscles actually work,
Hmm.
along with your face and just shows a breakdown of everything. So they learn how your mouth is forming the words, how your muscles form the words, things like that. Now, does Josh have issues with like swallowing and stuff like that?
Um, Sometimes I don't think it's ongoing. I think that we did have the endoscopy, and but that was more school stress, and he hasn't
Okay.
really spit up his food in a long time.
The only
So
reason why I'm asking is sometimes with muscle issues that could affect because swallowing is using the same muscles as your voice box does and your throat
mhm.
muscles to form words.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, say that again, Mary. I can't do two things at once.
Of course not. You're a guy.
Okay, right. Amen.
I had to have a smart comment in there.
That's
You know,
fine.
so feel your throat while you're talking,
Yeah, okay. I'm feeling my throat while I'm talking. I feel that vibration.
but also not just the vibration though, feel the muscles moving.
The muscles are moving.
Now
Right.
try swallowing and feeling how the same muscles are moving.
Uh-huh.
So
Interesting.
if you have problems with like swallowing and stuff, that's a muscle
Mhm.
thing. So you might have a little bit of an issue with talking just because it's the same muscles.
Yeah, I remember the my behavioralist wanted me to talk to the speech therapist about that. So yeah. So Gemini 2 speech, is it like number two? Let me search for that in the app store.
It's two eyes or the Roman numeral,
Yeah.
but either way, it should pop up. Um, they do have a scholarship program,
hmm
so don't let the price scare you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't pay that price. They have great scholarship programs. The one thing I love about that program, though, is that when you get it, and you get it, you actually work with a person that's a speech therapist specialist in neurodiversity and autism that walks you through how to set up the program, and they actually help you set it up for you
hmm
because there's so many different levels to speech in there. And what it's designed for, not only is it to watch it, but it's designed to play in the background.
Yeah.
So like you have it running on the because like you have Roku, right?
Yeah.
They have an app on the Roku for that.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
what I did is I had it playing on the Roku. And so they would watch it, but then too, it was background noise.
Yeah.
So like my son loved the muscle part. So when they were talking, it would show the different parts of the muscles, and that's what he loved.
Yeah. I see Gemini systems, Gemini mobile. Gemini teaches speech, reading, and behavior skills and are evidence based therapy
That
support effective. Is that it?
that might be it.
Yeah.
I'll look it up tomorrow and send you a link to it.
Yeah. Send me a link of, yep, that'd be great. That'd be great.
I gotta find my phone
Okay.
first.
Yep. I mean, David didn't crash because he slept in today while you did stuff. So what time will he crash tonight since you let him sleep in?
Probably not till about 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So will you stay up with him or will he be watching TV or running around the house?
He plays his computer game, watches TV, and then he will come and get me if he needs something.
Yeah. So he's going to do that. Eventually crash on the couch.
Yep, that's his
Yep.
bed.
That's his bed. You said, and then right. Okay. Well, it's
But
good. Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think about with Josh. Um, yeah, I like the idea of him locked in his room and all night long for safety, and he can come get me because it's a three-quarter door. And him, that you know, could he figure out how to get outside? And then so, but I'm glad. So David and Ariana, have they gone? Did they do elopement or did they go through the elopement stage?
David did, and so what we did is we put a deadlock on our front door, but one of those deadlocks that have keys on both sides,
Yep.
and then we had um special locks with keys for our patio door.
Yeah. hmm
And then all the windows, the not the window itself, but the screens were screwed into the windows, so we couldn't pop them out.
Yep.
So
Yep.
um, he couldn't leave the house.
Yep. And we did similar things. I know Josh, you broke out the glass on the door. You were kicked out the window, and an ambulance had to come and went to the hospital to get stitches. So after that, I got plywood over the doors on the inside with hinges, but we just keep them closed all the time. I mean, we've got them locked or zip tied or something. But so
And now he don't leave the yard when he does go outside. He after dark he the most he goes outside
hmm
is to walk out to the patio door and that's it and come back in.
well, that's good. That's great, and I'm glad that you all can. So, how do you and your husband? Is it a rough night sleeping, or do you all sleep okay when he's doing one of these all nighters?
My bed's right next to the patio door, so
Okay,
and I have eagle ears when I sleep,
good.
but I'm programmed to up and down all night.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds good.
The joke is I'm like an old man having to pee every 2 hours. It's just
Yeah.
I wake up every 2 hours regardless.
hmm
And a lot of times if David's up, Ariana's up.
Ah,
And
interesting.
she's the responsible one. She's working on babysitting, learning how to babysit and
Right. And she was counting her shillings the other day. She was standing there, being ready for payment, as I heard.
yes. Well, we've instead of money, she now gets to pick out so many mouths, which are little
Ah.
stuffed things.
hmm Yep.
That's her collection.
That's good. Well, I'm very proud of her because. So, is she doing the mothering thing to want to stay up, or do they? Are they when you let them sleep in? Are both of them sleeping in?
Yeah, they're like twins,
Aha.
but not twins.
Aha.
They even have their own little language they've had since they were little, and
hmm
you know,
Yeah. So, do you think the autism are they more bonded with? Does that have them more bonded than normal kids? Normal brothers and sisters that are this far apart in age?
no, because originally David didn't want, he didn't like anything. He didn't want anyone around him, especially like even his sister.
hmm
She tried a lot when she was little, but he just an isolationist. As
hmm
he's developing more and growing up, he's wanting more to do with her. But
Good.
then we are a big like I teach advocacy, but I teach togetherness.
Right.
Like when he gets mad and he'll pinch her or something, then he's got to go up and give her hugs and tell her she's
Yep.
sorry, or vice versa.
Right.
And
Good deal.
they're wired good kids.
Good deal. Well, that's like Josh. Josh is a happy-go-lucky kid. He's not one of these people that's always angry and wanting to fight and just all of a sudden out of the blue whacks you. I mean, if Josh is happy, if he's upset and you're not going to get bit or scratched if you don't get into his space when he's angry. So so that's good. Yep.
Right, and you know the warning signs, and so you know when
Right.
to let him be.
Right. Right. Yeah. We can. Another subject we can debate um, later on is the like the sleeves, the protection sleeves, because my behavioralist was against them wearing them, and then that we could also the debate over the helmet, having the helmet to protect the kids from banging their head. So I don't. I'm too tired to get that straight in my head, but
Let's
we've
talk
got a
about
lot.
that on Friday because that's a long discussion. That'll take
Yeah.
up the whole show.
Okay. Well, we
So
can do that.
Friday's episode will be about regulation techniques and about
Amen.
devices used for preventive measures.
Yep.
Is it a crutch or a tool?
Amen. Amen. And right, I might ask Travis, my behavioralist, to voice text a quick explanation in text so I could so I'll be ready. That'll be good.
Okay.
Okay,
If
Mary.
he ever wants to jump on, he's
Yeah.
more than welcome to add his 2 cents.
Well, that's good. Well, that's a great idea. I'm gonna, um, I'll work on that idea. Um, and yeah, we'll see how that develops. I mean, um, he's got a lot of it's an interesting situation. So yeah, but thank you for that offer.
Yeah,
And
anytime you find someone that would fit as a guest, more than welcome to bring them on.
okay, I never thought about that. Now my wheels are spinning. Okay, that'd be great. Okay, I
All
better.
right.
I got 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes to be asleep. So well, signing off for now, and we'll see you Friday night.
Have a good day. Have a good night. We'll see you back here Friday night at 8:30 East Central, 9:30 Eastern. Have a
Amen.
good night, y'all.